Well, sure. I think one of the turning points, obviously, in American history as it relates to education was the 1954 decision of Brown versus Board of Education. Now, that decision, of course, overturned the 1896 Plessy versus Ferguson decision that basically legalized segregation and said that segregation is totally fine as long as the facilities are separate but equal. When in reality, we know that having separate facilities where education is not being equally invested across the board when it comes to race, we know that that is an impossibility. Well, one of the reasons why Brown was also so instrumental is because it not only talked about educational disparities, but it also talked about the psychological damage that it does to a Black child to believe that they are inferior and they're not in a position to be able to go to school with white children. And that is one of the reasons why the NAACP lawyers were so successful in arguing that case before the Supreme Court, because they presented it as if it was an accident case, a car crash. In a car crash or a torts case, you have to prove damages. And what they were able to prove is that psychologically, African-American children are damaged when they realize that they are not receiving the same level of resources or education that their white counterparts are receiving. Unfortunately, as we know, we can change laws, but changing hearts and minds are more difficult. So even after Brown was decided, it wasn't enforced by anyone. So the Supreme Court actually had to come back a year later with Brown 2 and do a whole separate ruling because people were not trying to, integrate the schools. And even here in the state of Maryland, you did not see massive school integration until the 1960s, which unfortunately hurt a lot of African Americans and precluded them from having educational opportunities. So when people say that Brown was so long ago and, all the discrimination in education was so long ago, it wasn't. Because first of all, 1954, we're still living with folks that were alive at that time. And also we see the tentacles of Brown and oppression in the education system even today. And I feel as though when you're talking about investing in African-American children, you have to not only put them in a position to be successful, but you have to pour into them financially. But now, again, with the dismantling of the Department of Education, where is that oversight going to come from?